This module will cover the IDMS system verification process. It's designed to help you test various external connections as well as credentials to help streamline the installation and minimize installation errors. We will discuss the IDMS Install Manager. This is a utility to assist with the installation of IDMS. Next, we'll discuss various certificate utilities that are available on the operating system that will allow you to view certificate details and validate trust. Next, we'll discuss credentials that will be required for performing the test and connections to the external systems. And finally, we'll discuss the HSM and hardware security needs required when performing crypto operations on hardware-based tokens. As discussed before, the IDMS connects to various systems. In the installation package, the IDMS Install Manager helps streamline the installation of each of these systems by allowing you to first perform connectivity checks as well as validate the credentials to each one of the systems. Specifically, the Installation Manager will help you verify the following: database connectivity, connections to the directory, connections to the credential management system. It will help you validate the IDMS client certificate, as well as test connectivity to the hardware security module. Also, within the operating system itself, there are various certificate utilities that we'll be utilizing to view certificate details as well as to validate trust. We'll also discuss what to do to get ready for your customer installs to help ensure you have the proper credentials to test each external system as well as validate the certificates required for the installation process. Also, we'll touch on the hardware security module. It's important that the HSM be initialized and operational before the installation proceeds. But we'll also discuss HSM connectivity. We'll look at the driver settings as well as understanding the entry of the PIN during the HSM connectivity test phase. So as we start here, I'm back on my Windows 2012 server. I've been granted certificates from my system administrator, and I've put them all into my installation package just to help the installation go smoother. So the first thing I'd like to do is verify that my client certificate that was granted to me is trusted and is valid. So I'll simply just first click on it, and it will bring up the certificate validation path, and I can see there's an issue. This certificate cannot be trusted because the Global Certificate Root Authority has not been yet installed. So let's go ahead and discuss and visualize how to install this properly. So this is the certificate tool that we mentioned earlier. It is the certificate snap-in, and it will give you access to your certificate store for both the local computer and the user's certificate store. So I'll list the current user, and then I'll also open up the computer store. And now I have access to my local computer and local user certificate stores. So the first thing I want to do is import my trusted root certificate authorities from my IdenTrust CA. I will just browse, go to import. I'll browse to my installation package. And this is a P7B which has all the certificates included. I will select it and I will import it. And now when I look at my certificate, I can see that it's fully trusted. So now I can see it's a nice certificate path all the way up to the Federal Common Policy Test CA. Okay, so now the next step is to perform the system validation for each of the different systems the IDMS will connect to. We will use our IDMS Installation Manager utility for this. So I will launch it, and you can see there's various utilities that, or various sections that will be connected for each one of the external systems. So the first thing what we'll do is verify the database connection. Now I've been granted the DNS name and credentials from my database administrator, and I will simply enter those in and attempt the connection. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'll put my server name in there. I like to use DNS and not IP address. So in this example, we're going to specify SQL authentication. I'll put my username and then my password. After I've entered all the data, I will press Perform Test Database Connection. When this is successful, it returns back the version number of the database that you performed a connection to. So now we can see that we can connect to the database from this IDMS server. Let me show you what happens if it's not successful. In this case, I'll put a bad username so you can see the mistake. It will display that the database connection cannot be successfully connected to. We can clearly see that the login failed for this specific user. So we'll go back and correct that and try again. It's important not to proceed until database connectivity is fully utilized. As the IDMS database is critical for specific functions, this is one of the most important connectivity checks that need to be performed. Okay, so now the next step is to perform connections to our credential management system. So here, we will go into the CMS tab. What I'll do here is using my client certificate that was granted. In this case, I've exported it to this system, so I will just drag it here, and then I'll enter my CMS test DNS name, and I will press Test CMS Connection. This goes out and calls the CMS the same way IDMS would to verify that the CMS connection can be connected to. As you can see, we have our CMS connection failed. So let's take a look and see what happened. I will go back and first verify that my certificates are trusted. So I'll go here to my local computer store, and I can see that my certificate has not been read in. That's because I have not inserted my smart card with the certificate. So I'll do that now. So I'm inserting my smart card, and you can see it's being read. After it's complete, I'll refresh, and now you can see the certificate has been read in, and we can see that the certificate now is all the way trusted again. So let's go back and try the connection to the CMS again. Press Test CMS Connection. And now I'm being prompted for my PIN. It's performing the test. And now the CMS is connecting successfully. So just to recap, the certificate tool here is one of the most important that you can use during the installation. As IDMS requires mutually authenticated connections for all of its connections, it requires certificates. And this certificate utility is a very useful way to figure out what's going on when errors start occurring. Okay, so now what we want to do is test the connection to our directory. So in this, we will put the same process of putting the IP address, the username, and then we'll also put the search space for where the users will reside for our credentialing process. In this case, my administrator has told me that the OU is in test users. So that's where we will be pointing our test connection to be performed. I'll then enter my password, and I will press Test Directory Connection. So here the Active Directory connection was successful. So now we can move on to the client certificate. This is the IDMS client certificate That will be used for connecting to the IDMS for post-configuration. Therefore, it's critical that this certificate is validated before we perform the installation. So we'll point to the certificate, I'll use this one that my administrator granted. I'll press Test IDMS Connection. And what it's doing there is it's going and validating the certificate to ensure the operating system properly trusts it and the certificate has not been revoked. So this can take a few seconds while it's performing all the trust chain work to verify the certificate. Okay, so we saw that we had an error validating the IDMS certificate. So let's go back and check again. Although this occurs sometimes, we'll have to verify here. So we look again, and we can see it is trusted. So I'll go back and try it one more time because maybe the certificate revocation list just did not download properly. So let's try it one more time. Okay, in this case, the IDMS client certificate did validate. So if on the first try it doesn't work, try again. As mentioned previously, it's downloading the CRL, so sometimes that CRL download fails, and you may try to do it again to refresh the download. Okay, so the next phase is the hardware security module. So this utility will test the access to the HSM by taking the certificate that's stored in the HSM and encrypting it and decrypting it so you can see the operations occur. So the first thing we'll do is select a file to encrypt. I'll go to my C drive and I have a lab setup folder. I'll open it. I will then select the certificate serial number. In this case, my certificate's also in my HSM, so we'll go ahead and press Test HSM Connectivity. And it's prompting me for my PIN. And we can see the HSM connection was successful. Now it's important that HSMs come in different flavors. In our test example here, we're using an HSM that's based on a smart card, but it also supports any driver that's compatible with the PKCS11 native interface. So if your HSM provider is able to provide a PKCS11 interface to its private key from Windows, this function will work as well. This is an important test to perform because we want to verify that the IDMS can connect to the hardware security module from its installation location. Also, this helps verify that the HSM has been properly initialized and is ready for operation.